our garden wall. I hear the sirens call. You can have what you want. Yeah, you can have it all over our garden wall.
Hello there and welcome to Live Music and Me, a series of music podcasts where we get some of our friends to come on and talk about their gig memories. On today's podcast, our guest was the singer-songwriter and outstanding guitarist, Marco Rossi. There's a wee bit of a backstory to this one. Myself and Marco actually grew up together in the same town, and we have a lot of the same friends from sort of back in the day, but we're also pretty sure that we hadn't met each other until we had this podcast today. So apologies if it becomes a little bit local and there's a bit of reminiscing in here, which I'm sure there is. But within that, Marco is in top form. He talks a lot about stuff from back in the day, and some of the gigs that him and some of his friends went to see are really good fun to talk about. And also there's a little bit about Kevin McDermott in there, and why wouldn't there be? Because Marco's role in KMO was pretty fundamental as well. So we managed to shoehorn some of that in, and in general, just have some really good fun, and also absolute killer live album recommendation from Marco at the end, which will keep you interested. Apologies again, it's a bit longer than planned. Feel free to dip in and out, but it's definitely worth sticking with it. Okay, until next time, all the best now. Stay safe. Marco, good afternoon. How are we doing, sir?
I'm doing very well indeed, Brian, and thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on, mate. We really appreciate it. I know it's been a wee bit difficult to organise this one, so we're here, which is
I hope it'll be worth it.
yeah. And we always ask the guys this kind of distance thing, so we like kind of joining the dots up a bit. So where are we speaking to you today from?
I'm in my house in Dorchester, in Dorset.
Dorset, right?
Aye.
Okay, cool. And that's home.
That is home. It's a bit strange. I was meant to be going to Glasgow Uni to do an English degree, and I was a grade short in one of my A levels. And panicking, I looked at the back of the NME. They used to have adverts for further education places. So I was looking through, thinking, "Oh, where can I do this degree?" And Weymouth came up. It was affiliated to the University of Southampton. I had no idea where it was. I thought it was maybe like in the Midlands or something.
Yeah.
It's right in the bottom. So they took me sight unseen, which I guess is probably why they took me. But, so I ended up down here, and I just fell in with, as you would do, fell in with a bunch of musicians, met my wife down here, and all that kind of stuff. So I've ended up making roots here. Bit of an odd one.
Not at all. No, that's great. Well, we've all got to live somewhere, right? You know, that's how it works. So,
Well, I guess
okay, magic. So, listen, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate that. Are you ready to have a wee go at live music?
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
let's see how we do then. Okay, so let's start off. Take you back a little bit to start with. Tell me about the first gig that you went to.
Right, I had a thought about this, and it would have been, I think, about 1964. It was the jazz clarinetist Benny Goodman, and he was playing in a park in Livorno in Italy.
Right.
Me and my mum, we were over visiting like rallies and all this stuff. I was just a micro, I was tiny. And I remember falling asleep in her lap, my head in her lap, but he was playing on this lovely, it would have been kind of amazing, like a summer evening in Tuscany,
Yeah.
Benny Goodman, so that really is the first one that I went to, which is kind of amazing. Also
Yeah.
ages me, but
And do you think you remember the gig, or do you now know that you were there, if that makes sense? Or
no, I do. I remember being there.
yeah.
I remember my mum's excitement because she was. I mean, this is one of the weird things. I'm very obviously an accident in my family line. Like my brother's 10 years older than me, my sister's 13 years older than me, and I always looked to them as being like my musical influences because my brother was a massive Beatles fanatic,
Hmm.
Stones, Kinks, Who, Small Faces, all this stuff. My sister loved Motown and
Right.
Stax and all this stuff. So it was a brilliant, environment. But actually, thinking about it, it was my mum. Before all that, she was a massive trad jazz fanatic. I mean, an
Right.
absolute fanatic. She knew everything about it. She knew all the kind of 1920s New Orleans stuff. She
Yeah.
made me read Louis Armstrong's autobiography, My Life in New Orleans, when I was still a kid. So Mum was so enthusiastic about Benny Goodman. So so I remember picking up on just that. Oh, I can't believe it! He's playing here. My mum even, as a kind of wee, just to show you what she was like. Louis Armstrong played in Glasgow in the 50s.
Yeah.
And my mum cooked up a big pot of red beans and rice, and took it up on the train from Greenock, handed it up to him at the gig. It's just
And did he
been so
get it?
thank you, lady. Yeah, yeah. I
He
mean,
got,
just
wow, that's
yeah,
brilliant.
nuts. But I mean, that's kind of you kind of see where it comes from. It's kind of dyed in the wool, really, for us.
Right. Well, I can say, I don't remember all our podcasts, but I can say hand on heart, we've never had Benny Goodman as a gig reference, which is brilliant. It's absolutely
No,
brilliant, man.
but it's so odd because I was obviously because you think of like gigs you went to as a teenager,
Yeah,
and I thought, no, actually, I'd have seen live music before that,
perfect.
and that was it. So wow,
That's a
of all
great,
things.
great jumping off point. Love that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay,
Thank you,
then.
most
So,
welcome.
what's forward then? What was the last gig you were at?
It was actually on Friday just gone. It was I went up to the Electric Palace in Bridport to see my pals, the Jess Upton Soul Band,
Hmm.
and they're just fantastic. They were doing. I'm in a band with Jess at the moment, and we basically we play like weddings and corporate things and all stuff. Playing lots of disco music, which is great. I was dead snooty about disco at the time. I was like, oh, I was an albums person and I was into punk and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, embracing disco has been one of the great gifts of later life for me. It's joyous. It's such lovely, inclusive music. It's great fun to play.
Mm.
So I went along to before we had this band. Jess was in the soul band, and they'd split up and gone their different ways. And they did like this gig as a last hurrah,
Hmm.
and it was fantastic. Nothing not to love, basically. Just classic soul, and with a brass section and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And why do you think you have sort of fallen in love with disco down the line? What is it, the rhythm or the groove, or what would you think it is that sort of captured you now?
It was partly partly it was a kind of I don't want to say sociological, but partly it was this understanding of the way things have gone in the last 10 years or so, which have been very polarized, very deliberately polarized, I think, and the realization that the other side of the fence was just no fun at all. You
Yeah.
know, the thing about disco being like inclusive and way ahead of the game in terms of like LGBTQ and all that kind of stuff. I just thought this is actually that was maybe the first thing to kind of think actually being on the other side of the fence is with them guys no no thanks and then it was the realization that actually these are really lovely. They're put together really nicely. These songs, dead good playing, dead interesting chords in them and stuff, and a message of positivity all the time.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
That
do.
kind of
Yeah, yeah.
so that was kind of, and then after I just absolutely went a bundle on it and thought, what was wrong with me? I did love Speak at the time, because I think they were recognised as being like great players and all
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But now it's kind of, I mean, honestly, now even the most opportunistic stuff that it's got disco in the title and all that,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'll give that a listen. It's something about I maybe draw the line at disco duck, but maybe get me drunk enough, I won't even draw that line.
It's funny you talk about that association thing. So when I was in my kind of teenage years, I was a big Jam fan.
Oh yeah,
Loved the Jam, right? And
sure.
I literally had no idea there was a kind of right wing British kind of connotation to not to the Jam, but to some of the
Followers.
sport that followed them. Genuinely had no idea about it. It was really only when they were splitting up, and there was actually a wee bit of bother at some of the gigs when they were sort of breaking up and stuff like that. And I thought that's just so weird, and it always stuck with me that it's really difficult to it's this whole thing, art and the artist, and also the association of the art and the artist, and it becomes so difficult to be on the right side, I think, all the time.
It's a minefield, that one,
Yeah,
because
and for
there
the
are, I
artist,
mean,
and for the artist in particular, I remember Paul Weller being very vexed about it all
oh,
because he was a
absolutely,
very
because
inclusive
Red Wedge and all
individual.
that, he was
Yeah, yeah,
completely the opposite, totally.
yeah. I know.
I mean, it's funny because I have this conversation a lot, with people because it is a difficult one. I think there's almost like, I'll maybe make certain allowances. Usually the artists are fine, but it's like, for example, like the Who with Roger Daltrey's like a big Brexit guy, and that is so off-putting to me. That really off-putting, and I find it's so hard to look, to kind of
Yeah,
get by that. It's like, oh
yeah.
God. And obviously, I mean, Christ, there's a minefield of dodgy people, isn't there? You know, it's
Don't go there, right? We'll
no,
be
no, I won't. Yeah, I
we'll get
won't. But,
stuck off.
but you know what I mean? It's one of these things whereby you kind of think, oh,
We always have there's always a reference somewhere in our chats to Van Morrison in this world because pretty much everybody loves Van Morrison. But when you then talk about him and as an individual and some of his own kind of histrionics and personality and stuff, and it becomes quite difficult to clean it out. But they go back to that. Well, I suppose he's entitled to be a bit of a dickhead if he wants to, as long as he keeps making the best music that you've ever heard, type of thing. So it is a
yeah,
hard
I
one.
guess. I mean, he was. Did you ever know Joe Baldi he used to run ad lib music or
No,
co-run ad lib music? It was.
I remember Ad Lib. Oh yeah,
I,
sorry. Yeah, yeah, yes, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I
yeah,
didn't know that was
Joe's a
his name.
lovely
Yeah,
guy, a
yeah,
real sweetheart. I remember getting into when I was still living in Greenock. I remember getting in to buy some strings, and Kevin, who was the other guy that ran the thing, said, "Oh, did you see Joe on the telly last night?" I said, "What?" He said, "Aye, South Bank show." I said, "Fuck off!" Was he on the
yeah,
telly? It was a Van Morrison special. I watched it, and he said, "Aye,
yeah.
Joe used to play guitar with them, Van Morrison's band in the '60s."
Wow,
No, he didn't.
wow.
And so I went through the back and said, "Joe, Kevin's telling me you were in them," and Joe went, "Aye, aye." And I had to absolutely coerce this story out of him,
Yeah,
and he basically, yeah, because their personal dynamic was just,
yeah.
Van Morrison was already very, very difficult, and Joe's just basically it was the tour with the Birds. I mean, an amazing thing to be on, British tour, and
Wow.
they got to Glasgow and Joe's got on the train back to Greenland. Thought I can't handle this.
Right.
Just it's that's. You've probably heard this. I don't mean to sidetrack this, but you probably heard this story. It's remember when Van Morrison was married to she was like a beauty queen. Do you remember this?
Yeah, yeah.
So he was very much not on his brand, but he was like turning up to like, after show parties and stuff with her. And the story is that he turned up at one of these things, and the bouncer on the door looked at him and then shouted at the room, "Has anybody ordered a minicab?" I love that story. It's like whether or not it's apocryphal doesn't even matter. It's
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You would like to believe it, wouldn't you?
you would
Yeah.
absolutely. We
But
actually played. We one of the Fla things. He was on the same bill as us, and we were on the Late Late Show in Belfast. This is KMO,
yeah,
and he was on the same show as us, but didn't. I'd love to tell you. He came over and he was like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" But,
I love the
that never
album.
happened.
Yeah, yeah. Ah, well, there you are. There's our van story. We always get one in somewhere.
It's
Okay then.
simple.
So that's brilliant. I didn't know about you. That's magic. Okay, so tell us about the first gig that you went to with a partner, like a gig date.
I was thinking about this as well, and funnily enough, it's she wasn't a partner. We were just pals, but this was Louise. I coerced her into coming with me to see Captain Beefheart at the
Ah,
Apollo,
wow.
and she fell asleep. And that is the most hardcore response to Captain Beefheart that I can imagine. I love that story. It just every time I think, oh, it's so funny because I was like, "You've got to come and see him. He's
Yeah,
amazing." She's like, "All
yeah,
right, fine." Louise can even still now can fall asleep anywhere at any time.
yeah,
It's brilliant. It's
yeah.
it's a gift. But in terms of actual
Where was that?
partner,
Was that the Apollo, did you say? Yeah.
I was, yeah.
Apollo, yeah.
It
Okay.
was 1980, and the Comsat Angels were supporting. Great
Right.
gig, and
Okay.
absolutely
Yeah, I
amazing.
bet it was, yeah. Apart from Louise. Right.
That kind of made it for me because I was thinking, no way, because it was bedlam, as you can imagine, and just
I can.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's one of these things whereby I'd bought Trout Mass Replica like 2 or 3 years before that. Because I'd heard so much about it, and it was a double album. So it was a big
Yeah.
expenditure,
Yeah.
from saving up your pocket money. And I was listening to it thinking, what is this? And then one day, I don't know, a couple of years down the line, it just clicked. Well, that's how the songs go. They're not just making a noise. Those are arrangements. And go to see them live. They
Yeah.
played these songs exactly like that, and it was.
Right.
Like, I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, this actually is genius. They're not just making a noise. The songs go that way,
Yeah.
and that was such a revelation.
No, I like that. That's fantastic. That's like you say,
Incredible.
that's hard to sleep at a Captain Beefheart gig.
It is. But I mean,
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. The first one I went to with a partner was probably when I came down here and I was at college. My college girlfriend Ruth, we went to see the Stranglers, in Poole, but I don't even know if that counts because we were on a minibus with a bunch of other students, but
That's
that.
fine. Absolutely.
After that, I was usually just coercing Julie, who's now my wife, to come to my gigs.
Yeah. Well, that counts as well. And it's always nice. We always ask questions about, did you keep in touch and stuff like that. And of course, sometimes they're married and sometimes they've never seen each other again.
Sure,
And, it's really nice to get that kind of moment in time thing,
definitely.
good or bad.
Well, absolutely.
Okay, so what about a bucket gig in the past that you'd wished you'd managed to get to?
Um, I think it would be one of the UFO gigs that Pink Floyd did in 1967 when Sid Barrett was still with them,
Mhm.
um, because it just any of the kind of surviving footage or any of the surviving eyewitness accounts, it sounds incredible. It would have been so immersive and so brand new. And you're aware of how brand new it was because anytime they went out of that little bubble to the provinces or anything like that, they were hated. I mean, people
Mm.
just could not bear them. I mean, they played in Weymouth. Funny enough, I need to tell you this. I came down here to study, basically to do my degree because I couldn't get into Glasgow Uni, and part of the process for choosing places to write off to was, did Sid Barrett's Pink Floyd play there?
Ah, right.
this is
Okay.
this is how stupidly immature I was. But yeah, sure enough, they played in Weymouth Friday, October the 13th, 1967. There you go. So when I moved down here, I met a few people and said, "Oh God, did you go to that gig?" No, yeah, they were terrible. They were awful. There was a soul band supporting who are much better. That's what everyone says. Absolutely everybody says that.
Yeah, I bet.
Because they were doing something that was brand new, and there was a lot of noise in it, and just bedlam, and just the excitement of that, the shock of the new thing. I just think that would be pretty amazing to go along to that. Not even in hindsight, but just to have been of the
Yeah,
correct age in the
yeah,
correct place.
absolutely. And that would have been those kind of London gigs where they had all the psych backdrops and videos and stuff that they were.
Totally.
Right. Okay.
And really, really primitive as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people who went to the Weymouth thing remember they had a trestle table at the back of the hall with just like a projector, but they were and there was a Bunsen burner in front of it, so they were melting oil, so the
Yeah.
oil was doing all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love all that. That they reading about it, like they used to do. The guys who did the light show, they'd do things like they'd stretch condoms across the front of the lens because the stress patterns when you stretched it would look amazing on the thing. I mean, fantastic. All that stuff about uh, creating this, not just here's a button that makes a light
Yeah.
show happen.
Yeah.
The primitiveness of it and just the brand new. They're just that they're inventing this stuff on the hoof, and the lights weren't that powerful, so they'd sight them right underneath them, so you get these huge tall shadows
Yeah.
and stuff. It was fantastic. All the stuff which is kind of expedient, but
Yeah.
made it look
Yeah. Totally.
incredible. I think that would have been really something to see. I think
Yeah, I totally get that. Totally. And also their music was kind of pretty weird in inverted commas as well for the time, wasn't it? They were sort of
fantastic.
stretching, literally
Oh,
stretching what they were doing. So yeah.
incredible that they got into EMI making that noise, but it's because, because they had it was Norman Smith, Hurricane Smith, who had like don't let it die.
Yeah,
Norman Smith, who John Lennon used to call Normal Smith because he
yeah,
was very so he ended up being the producer of their first album.
yeah.
And he was very, yes, we need some songs here and all that, Fine, but they got
Yeah.
away with Interstellar Overdrive, which is still to me one of the great pieces of improvised music. Well, it's like a jazz thing. It's got a head and
Yeah.
it's got a
Yeah.
resolution, but it's got a big, big thing in the middle, which is
It has. Yeah.
fantastic chaos.
Yeah.
So,
I guess if you're ever going to get signed up on a big label, 67, 68 is probably a good time to be doing it because everything
yeah,
was kind of, the gloves were off, weren't they? Anything went,
completely. It
yeah,
was.
yeah,
It was kind of similar to what happened about 10 years down the line. It was because it was like a street movement
yeah,
basically, which had overtaken what the major labels were thinking, and there was a lot of guys thinking, "Oh God, I don't know if these guys are any good or not. We
yeah.
better sign them."
Better sign them.
So a lot of incredible stuff
Yeah.
pitched up on major labels
There we go.
in both eras. Where you just think this is great.
Oh, it's magic. Yeah,
Yeah.
could be doing with it again, couldn't we? To be honest,
Oh, absolutely. Because that's the
that's
thing.
yeah,
There's great music about it now. It's not like obviously you can't help but be nostalgic about this stuff, but
of course. Yeah.
there's so much fantastic stuff happening right now that could really do with that kind of people taking a punt on it. But then the whole machinery of it is this is probably another discussion, but the whole machinery of the record business is not what it was.
No, no, I get that. But also
Virgin Records is
you have guys like Last Night from Glasgow, which I know you know.
fantastic. Yeah,
So you have got people that are willing to now keep going that extra mile
absolutely.
for
And
both new artists and existing artists that are doing kind of Renaissance comebacks or whatever. So
it's brilliant.
it's
So
wonderful.
it's a lovely business model because it's kind of because business is almost shuffled to the back.
Yeah,
It's incredibly, it's very encouraging, and
agreed.
I love to see it.
Agreed. I mean, let me name check. Can I find it then if I've got it? Because I'm terrible at name checking things. So look at there you are.
Oh
That
hey,
was Last Night from Glasgow, wasn't it?
absolutely,
It
yeah.
was, yeah. And I know that picture very well, of course, from Guruk. So
From Gurkha,
yeah, it's brilliant cover. And I know Alec, your friend, was involved in that. So
absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
Bless
no,
him.
it's great record, mate, as well.
Thank you, thank
Well,
you.
well done for that. What about any gigs that you had a ticket to but you never got?
Uh, this is a good one. I never saw the ticket, but a mate of mine bought a ticket for the Sex Pistols, Clash and Heartbreakers, and
Oh,
you
right.
know, so I didn't miss it, but they did. It was the gig was it was banned.
That's right.
It
Yeah,
was famously so I still had to give this pal of mine a quid, whatever it was, but I never saw it. But I wish I'd kept it for a keepsake or still had it now. It'd been amazing.
oh, yeah.
But I was meant to be going to see that because
Oh, wow. Isn't that amazing? You
of all
talk about,
things,
yeah, you talk about that ground zero thing, don't you? You mentioned earlier on, and
totally.
very much part of that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was, I mean, I was saying to, I turned 15 in
yeah,
1976, and I was saying to my pals, it's just like the 60s because
yeah.
all these great singles were coming out, great new bands, week after week it felt.
Hmm.
So it was kind of an incredible time, briefly, and then it became slightly less incredible.
Of
But
course.
when it became a uniform, then although post-punk for me is kind of it's still that's still incredibly inspiring, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, I'd agree with that. I think coming out of punk was some of the best music that you've ever heard, really, in the
Totally, yeah,
post-punk world, for sure.
fantastic.
Okay, so what about a gig that most surprised you, good or bad?
Uh, I'll tell you who it was. It was Eels, and they were
Uh-huh.
playing it. It was a kind of like a mini festival. The Who were headlining,
Yeah.
and it was Super Furry Animals, and Flaming Lips. And this an incredible
Good
lineup,
lineup. Yeah, that's brilliant.
absolutely amazing. And Eels were kind of at the bottom of the bill, and they basically before they it was I still laugh thinking about it because what they did, I mean, they blew everybody else off stage by the simplest methodology. Like before they came out on stage, this big bloke with like a cap sleeve T-shirt with crew written on it. He came out and he had like a handlebar moustache and all that stuff and wraparound shades. And he came with his arms folded, stood at the front of the gig, the stage like that. And everybody was going, boo, gaff, fuck off, all stuff. So he did that just staying the audience out for like 10 minutes or something, just like a long, long time. And then the band came out, they looked amazing. They all had like flying suits on and they all had long, long, like Hasidic kind of beards, they looked amazing and flying helmets. And they were all playing Dan Electro guitars. And this bloke was still standing at the front of the stage. And this he didn't budge for 3 songs, and it was like, what's this guy doing here? And then in the third song, he reached in his pocket, he took out a wee shaker,
Uh-huh.
and he started, and everybody's like, oh, hang on a minute. And
Yeah.
then the fourth song, he started doing these like Elvis karate moves and stuff. And then by the fifth song, he was playing keyboards and he was kind of integrated, and everybody was just doubled over laughing at this.
Wow.
And just you were saying, did you see that? Because obviously, I mean, like I've seen the Flaming Lips a couple of times, and they're
Yeah.
fantastic. They're
Yeah, yeah.
an amazing live band. But all we could think about and talk about was Eels because it was like, oh my God. And
I like
so
that.
in the noughties at some point, And the Who, harking back to, I think we were talking before we started here about your kind of connotations of, when the Who came on, I was suddenly surrounded by these big, beefy, horrible blokes. And I'm thinking, guys, you know, kind of my age and above, but sort of, with like a Hampton jackets on and kind of, sort of getting edge and stuff. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
blokey, isn't it? And,
Yeah.
and that was just, oh, no, no thanks.
Yeah. I like that. And all waiting on my generation or whatever, right?
Totally,
You
yeah.
know.
It's like, guess what? You didn't die before you got home. Yeah, more's the
Yeah.
pity.
Very true. I love that the Eels thing. I saw the Eels at the concert hall, I don't know, 10 years ago now maybe. And they were great. It was a really good gig. But the thing I remember about it was at the encore at the end of the gig, I don't remember what he played, but he came at the end of the gig, he came off the stage and basically walked up the aisles hugging as many people as he could
Oh,
as a thank you for coming to the gig.
that's
I mean, I
fantastic.
mean, at least 100 people he must have hugged, right?
Wow.
It was wonderful. It's like it was just a lovely way to kind of that inclusivity of it all. And then
That's
he went up back on the stage and just left. That was it. So,
that's lovely.
isn't it? So there's a
It
wee
really
idea,
strikes me as a
wee
really
idea for you next time you're headlining and
yeah, yeah, people shying away. What's that guy doing?
okay. What about a gig that you travelled the furthest to get to?
Let me just I made a couple of notes just to try to remind myself
No
of
bother.
what this was about. Travel the furthest to yeah, that's right. It was we didn't actually this wasn't the purpose of being there, but Kevin McDermott and I went to Paris. We were playing with KMO in the Rex Cinema, I think, but we went like a couple of days early just to try to knock some song ideas together. And also, our pal Robbie McIntosh was
Hmm.
playing in McCartney's band at the
Okay.
time,
Yep.
and they were playing at the Palais des Omnisports du Bercy. And so Robbie said, yeah, I can get you in. So Kevin and I went along to that, and it was jaw dropping. I mean, just absolutely stunning. So
I bet. Yeah.
it wasn't why we were there, but we knew it was happening, and we knew we could go to it,
That's
so we
okay.
could.
That works totally. Was that the first time you saw McCartney?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because I did go to when again it was another thing that Robbie got me into. McCartney did like an invite only thing in the Mean Fiddler, like an amazing thing to be at, And so Stella McCartney was in front of me in the audience stuff. It was like, wow, this is
Yeah.
um, and that was amazing because it was McCartney and
Yeah.
a great band at the time.
Yeah.
Hamish Stewart, I mean, phenomenally, just
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
that close. The story about that is that I went for a wee in the break, and Kevin Godley came in. He was standing at the urinal next to me, and this kind of drunk bloke came in and kind of saw him and went, "Hey mate, are you Dennis Russos?" Kevin Godley went, "Fuck off!" And I just spluttered, I just burst out laughing, and Kevin Godley
Uh,
quite gave me an absolute death stare.
it makes true sauce. He
I
was
won't
probably
get
the
his
guy.
name, but yeah,
The guy's probably a Who fan, right?
almost certain.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I
Yeah,
love
who
that.
deserves?
Oh, very good. Love that. Okay. So what else you got? What about your favorite music festival?
That's again. I had to make a wee note about this because I'm not really a festival goer.
Yeah, they've been
But
quite marmite to be honest. We get that a lot. People either love them or kind of disengage from them. So
yeah, I love watching. I always watch Glastonbury every
yeah.
year on the telly from the comfort of my own sofa. Yeah, I like a functioning toilet too much. That's all that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, it's just I'm not a great camper or anything. And there's a story that a couple of my pals told me, which was so off-putting. I think it might have been one of the Reading festivals. It was like late '70s, and it was the Monday morning, and everybody was leaving, and they were at the back of this long, long queue that went away off into the horizon, and then did a right angle to the gate,
Hmm.
and there was just this big empty field in the middle, and they were thinking, "Why is nobody just cutting across?" So he thought, "Fuck this, let's cut across." So what they were doing was cutting across where the toilets were. So they just ended up in this like terracotta warriors, just absolute degradation. Thousands of people in this queue pointing and laughing at them.
Very good.
It's the most awful. So I thought, oh no, no,
No,
that's not for me. So
no.
Aye.
And did you have a favourite one, or are you passing this one?
No, it would be Glastonbury
Glastonbury. Yeah.
just because it's kind of I just love I love how diverse it is. I love
Yeah.
all the other stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
I love the fact that particularly in recent years, there's always like somebody who'll make older people, like myself, but not myself, sort of go, oh, why are they having that person headlining all that stuff? Right back to who was it that uh, Noel Gallagher famously took against?
Jay-Z, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
It was
And
Jay-Z. Yeah.
and I remember thinking, oh, don't,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
And he was brilliant, Jay-Z.
yeah, absolutely
Of course he
fantastic.
was. Yeah.
And so that to me, I love the fact that they don't seem to be, they don't seem to be diverted by, thankfully, by these terrible compartmentalized
Yeah.
tastes, because that thing that John Peel always used to say, the next song you hear might be the best song you ever heard. That's a great ethos to live by, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
So
Okay.
for me, it's kind of that's part of the thing. Every time we watch, Julie and I will watch Glastonbury, the footage, and we'll always get into at least someone, if not several someone's, purely by watching that.
Totally, yeah, exactly the same. There was a couple this year that I went away and dug out, and I actually got tickets to see a couple of them as
Brilliant.
well that I would
Amazing.
never have went to see. So it's wonderful. Keeps us a little bit younger, hopefully.
Definitely against all odds.
Against all odds. What about what would your favourite music festival with KMO have been? You got one that jumps out at you?
Yes. It was we. I mean, I'll get to another thing later on, but
Okay.
yeah, we did like a little run of festivals in kind of like Belgium and Holland, and we did one in this town square in Belgium with this beautiful architecture around it, and it was just such a thrill for me because my happiest times came over all that little European thing because um, it was gorgeous. We're just playing these amazing places. We'd been I don't know if this footage still exists, but we were on Belgian TV in the morning, and it was this complete Europop setting. It was opposite the Stella Artois brewery,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a canal there, and Kevin was meant to go by on one of the canal boats, and Jim and Steph and I were meant to like thumb a lift and all this, and it was so crass. But I just loved it. I thought this is delightful. What a lovely thing! And I've never seen the clip, but I hope
Yeah.
it goes somewhere because.
Yeah.
But so we did that, and it was kind of saying that we were playing this thing, and interesting people, an average white band, and the inmates and people like that were playing this
Yep.
festival. I think there is footage of that, although I don't know if it's ever found its way onto YouTube. I know it was filmed,
Yeah.
and it was just because it was kind of it was still kind of early on with the band, and there was kind of everything to play for, and it just felt like a real privilege, to be in this beautiful place,
Yeah.
playing music, and
Yeah.
we didn't know well and all that kind of stuff. Nobody knew who we were. I mean, that was
Yeah.
a recurring thing. At least I'm Scotland.
Not
But
at all. That's not. That's not true. I like that.
it was just really, I think back very fondly. All the ones that we did another one with Aswad were playing and Cockney Rebel and all these people, and it was kind of
Yeah.
very interesting to
Yeah.
see, guys like that backstage and all that. It was
Yeah.
fun.
No, that sounds magic. No, I love that. Okay. Best support act you've ever seen?
The Rosillos, they were supporting the Ramones, and that whole gig was astonishing. That was in the Apollo again.
Yeah, we've had that gig referenced by like Ken McCluskey or someone like that was there.
I'm
Yeah.
not surprised. It was jaw
Yeah.
dropping because I'd seen the Rosillos on Report in Scotland before that, and it was one of these really naff things. Punk rock comes to Caledonia. It's one of these kind of things. And in my memory, it's kind of it was like a village hall in like Auckland or something like that, and kind of a bunch of like heavies like sitting cross-legged on the floor. And I remember thinking, no, that's not right. And so I had a very negative idea of what they were like. And when they came out, they were just devastating. Like Eugene and Faye
Mm.
came out from opposite ends of the stage, both doing the Watusi, and we were like, what? And they just absolutely they kicked the most arse, I think, of any band I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Phenomenal band. William Mysterious, what a player, what
Yeah.
a good player, phenomenal. And so. literally, yeah, I'd gone from 0 to 1,000 in terms of how I felt about them. I was just like, God, I can't believe how great they are.
Yeah.
And the Ramones were great, but it was kind of,
Yeah.
again,
Be,
one of the things where you came away thinking the Ramones were legendary. It
yeah.
was,
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm delighted I saw them at that point.
Yeah.
But that was dead funny. It was that they before they came out on stage, the backdrop rolled down and it was the famous Ramones logo.
Yeah.
Dead exciting, and some people in there's 2 rows of boxes in the
Yeah.
Apollo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people in the top box unrolled this big sheet that said Gabba Gabba Hey on it, and it came right down over over the box beneath it. Bloody fists and chips and stuff. Imagine that. Your favourite band comes on the sheet. It was like
Ah.
prefiguring the wall. And it was just dead funny, and they were stunning. I think
Yeah.
half an hour maybe the set was, and
Mm.
then the encore was half an hour,
Yeah.
But
And
what
that
do
would be
you
that half an hour would be 10 songs, wouldn't it? 11 songs.
Yeah,
So,
completely.
so
No gap.
yeah.
Just feedback and BD. Shut up.
Yeah, that sounds magic. I mean,
Fine
well,
company.
we've the pleasure of having Faye on the podcast. So,
Great,
absolute force of nature, as you can imagine.
amazing,
And
amazing.
they've got, I think, a new album coming out this year, The
That's
Resolve.
right.
Yeah.
On last night from Glasgow, in fact.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. So,
It'd be fantastic.
that should be
I,
good. Well,
I, I, I bought a guitar from Eugene. Is this a story I can? Uh,
story away, mate. Yeah.
well, uh, we when I came down here, obviously I wasn't in the Stingrights anymore. But anytime I came back up during the holidays, if they were, sometimes there'd be somebody couldn't make a gig, and there was one of those. It was Stingrights were playing in Night Moves, supporting the Revillos, the
Ah,
revitalized
yeah,
Revillos.
yep. Yep.
They were incendiary as well. What a band! But Kid Krupa was playing this gorgeous Mosrite Ventures guitar, and at the end of the gig, I was saying, "God, lovely guitar," and he said, "That's Eugene's. I think he's selling it." And I went, "What?"
Yeah.
So I went up and brokered a deal with him, and so I arranged to meet him in Edinburgh, and I drove up my Morris Minor, and he came up on one of these, Indian motorcycles. The
Yeah.
famous one, with the kind of like a Red Indian's face was the headlight. I mean, and
Yeah.
they had like an old open face helmet on,
Yeah.
and it just looked amazing. And so I followed him back to the flat, and they had a fluorescent pink front door and a full size Dalek in the hall. That
Yeah.
was I don't know if you saw the last Rosillos gig, but there was a Dalek on stage.
Ah, right. No, I didn't know
It
that.
was in
No.
the hallway, and they were sitting about, and they had those old round '60s Hoovers that you
Yep.
get.
Yep.
They had like 2 or 3 of them sitting about with the tops off them. They were taking the motors out and putting an amplifier inside, so they were using them as amplifier housings.
All
What a
right.
great idea!
Yeah.
So I came away thinking, my God, they're living that life, and it's
Yeah.
incredible.
Ah, that sounds good. And what happened to the guitar?
I sold it, but not before running it over. Oh my God! This Morris Minor that I was talking about. I was playing a gig in a local band down here, and it was kind of in the mid '80s, and the gig was horrible, just folk fighting each other and all this. And I was like, oh God, So I came out quite dazed, and I propped the guitar in its case against the back wheel while I opened the door. Forgot it was there and reversed out, and thought, oh, what
Oh,
if I just so I ran it. I was so lucky, having said that, because I ran over kind of like the top corner like
right.
that.
Yeah.
So the case was matchwood, but the guitar, if you held it up to light, you could very, very faintly see a little bit of tire tread on the end
Yeah.
of it. It was essentially unharmed, which is kind of incredible. And in recent months, I think I found the guy who now owns it, which is kind of incredible
Ah,
because I took it to a shop. I mean, the guy told me that it was like a Japanese collector who was interested in the stuff, but it seems to have ended up with a guy I think who lives in Glastonbury, perhaps. But
there you are.
we've got this kind of we're hopefully going to meet up at some point soon. They'll show me the guitar, and I thought, oh
Ah,
wow,
that's good. I like that.
that was lovely.
That's full circle, isn't it?
It is
Yeah, I like
in
that.
every
Brilliant.
sense.
Yeah, totally. What about a gig that made you miss the last bus or train home?
I don't think I ever did
No.
miss. I was always very good at. I was always very good at it. I'd always thought, oh no, I can't. So I
And
think
would you leave gigs early to get home? Do you remember doing
I
that?
have done. I have done.
Yeah.
I've got a great story about that, but it's not my story. It was my pal Tim who died a couple of years ago. But Tim's that much older than me, like 10 years older than me, and he saw the Jimi Hendrix Experience in Bournemouth, and so Tim lived in Weymouth, and it was a seated gig, unbelievably, and
Yeah.
Tim was looking at his watch like, last train's coming out. So he had to leave before the end. So he stood up and he's edging along, the row, and Hendrix mid solo pointed at him and said, "Hey, where are you going?" And, like, whoa, Hendrix spoke to him. My God,
Oh, brilliant.
that's fantastic, isn't it? So
Getting, getting,
kind of
getting
worth
dinged,
missing out,
getting dinged by Hendrix. Goodness me. Uh,
but that, no, that's pretty good.
rock and roll, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's fantastic. There you are. I don't think we've had any Hendrix gig references either, because obviously he didn't play that many. I know he played in like ensemble tours for a bit and stuff, but as a kind of headliner, he didn't do that many gigs around the
No,
UK.
but that's the funny thing. Like, if you do speak to people who saw him, it's always, it'll be, oh, it was the club down the road. It was kind of
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
very, very start, the first half of '67, before Monterey, basically. Um,
yeah,
it's astonishing where he pitched up. It just, my God, really? Great photos of him playing in Carlisle and all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
Like,
I
what?
know. That is amazing.
And my mate Brian, we were on the ferry across the Dunoon from Gourock to Dunoon, and my mate Brian introduced me to a guy who was leaning on the rail, and said, "Oh, this guy saw Hendrix. He saw him in Green's Playhouse, I think, on that big package tour of Pink
Yeah,
Floyd,
yeah, yeah.
Nice and Amen Corner and all that." And he said, "Oh, you two are guitar players?" And this bloke said, "No, I'm not a guitarist anymore." He said, "I saw Hendrix in Green's Playhouse in the following day, so I threw my guitar in the Clyde." We go both ways. That kind of that influence.
Oh, brilliant. Either inspires you or kills you, right?
Absolutely, or
Oh,
both.
yeah, both ultimately. Yeah, no, very, very few Hendrix references, which is a shame. I'm sure there are stories out there to
Totally, but part of it
interest.
is also you kind of realise that people who saw him are in their mid 70s at the youngest,
Yeah,
and it's part
yeah,
of it. It's just that that thing of attrition, sadly.
yeah. As me, totally. That's why we're doing as many as we can.
Absolutely, definitely.
What about the loudest gig you ever went to?
Loudest gig.
Yeah,
Do you know what's funny? I saw Motorhead on the Overkill tour,
yeah,
and I didn't think they were that loud. I thought it was quite pleasant. It was kind of like, could you, like a big wave, a big tsunami of sound.
yeah,
Before that, I went to see the Jam in. It was, in fact, it was Guy Fawkes night, 1978. It was when Down the Tube Station at Midnight came out,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and they were supported by the Dickies,
yeah. Remember
American
Dickies?
punk
Yeah,
band.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the Dickies were the loudest band I've ever seen. I think partly because I was running a fever that night, and I was thinking, oh, I've got a ticket, I've got to go.
Yeah,
So I went anyway, but it was so trebly.
yeah.
It was punishing, absolutely punishing. So that to me, yeah, the Dickies were louder than Motorhead. I don't know. I
Wow.
don't know how much I don't know how much my condition at that point
Yeah,
factored into that, but
fine.
nevertheless,
That's your memory, mate. That's fine. Like
yeah.
that. That's also the first Dickies reference, I'm sure. For sure. You're,
I'll have
you're
to glaze these trails,
you're doing well. You're doing fantastic. Is there a bucket gig in the past? You mentioned the Pink Floyd London stuff. So is there any bands or artists that you haven't seen that you would still like to see?
Yeah, I mean loads really, but I mean the one that sticks out is probably Richard Dawson, who is just I love him. He's just this, just a lumpy bloke who just has the most incredible loose guitar style, singing style. Writes incredible songs. He's an amazing guy,
Yeah.
really amazing guy. His existence gives me hope, basically,
Okay.
because it's hard to put an age on him. I guess late 40s, maybe early 50s. I don't know, but he's playing this stuff which is really quite radical. It's kind of such an original player, and his
And what is
voice.
he? He's what, American or UK or
No, he's
where?
British.
British, right? So
Yeah.
why have you not seen him then, do you think? I
Um,
don't know him at all. I don't know the name.
check him out. I think
Yeah,
you'd
I'll
love
do
him.
that. Of course I will. Yeah.
He's I honestly don't know why. Part of it is not being as plugged into stuff, which is partly an age thing. Kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't, I used to buy the NME every week, and obviously I was part of like a local music scene and all that stuff. But somebody like him, it's not like he's not the sort of person who, his fans adore him, but he's not somebody who's going to, you won't find a headline about him anywhere
Right.
else. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah, yeah.
so I don't actually know, and it is something that I really do need to address because he's jaw dropping.
Okay. Like that.
Yeah, check him
We,
out.
yeah, we do, and it's lovely that we get so many references to bands or artists that we either don't know or maybe have forgotten about a little bit.
Right.
And it's great because you do see people going back and saying, I went and dug out that. Because we talk about live albums and stuff as well. So there's a whole bunch of live albums that, so you get the Thin Lizzy stuff, and whatever, that's great. But you
Yeah,
also get a lot of obscure things there, and it's lovely to go back and check them out, So.
definitely.
So we put Richard Dawson on the list. Thank you very much. What have we got? Okay, a couple 4 years an artist then. So what would you say was your sort of favourite gig as an artist?
Uh, do you know, I was thinking about this. I think the most noteworthy one would probably be when with KMO when we played at Wembley Stadium.
Yeah,
We were supporting Rod
yeah,
Stewart and Steve
remember that.
Pollard. You know,
So there was
amazing music.
there was you, Status Quo, Rod
Rod Stewart,
Stewart, Joe
Joe
Cocker
Cocker.
there, Joe Cocker,
Yeah,
right?
he was lovely. He was dead sweet. Like
Yeah.
Steph and I were standing in the queue for catering behind him, and we were going, "It's Joe Cocker, it's Joe Cocker." And he turned around and went, "Oh, hello, lads, you're in the Kevin McDermott Orchestra. I
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed your set. Dead and pleasant." And we were like, "Don't talk to us, guy. Come on." Dead nice. And his musical director was John Miles,
Of
musical
course.
director,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
which was kind of amazing. And his
Yeah.
drummer was, oh God, can't remember his name now, but he used to drum for Wings, and he was a dead nice guy as well.
Okay.
Status Quo, we never crossed paths with.
Uh-huh.
Rod Stewart, we never crossed paths with. He was kind of he'd arrive in a limo with police outriders,
Of
and
course.
yeah, and leave before the gig ended. So like everybody is sailing, the band's playing it, and
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
out and all that, and
yeah.
he's out, he's gone.
He's gone.
But so I mean, that's very noteworthy, but not my favourite gig. If weirdly enough, every time I try to think of what my favourite KMO gig, it's it's Aviemore of all places. We played really, really early on in Aviemore
Okay, right.
to a bunch of like young skiers and all that stuff who
Yeah.
didn't know or care who we were, but we just had it's such a lovely bonding day. It was dead end early on, and we got there early and we were on the go karts and all that stuff and playing snooker and all that good stuff and just creased with laughter. And I was in such a good mood when we played the gig that I mean, it didn't even really matter. I didn't care that they didn't care. It was fine.
Yeah, yeah,
We were
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
And it's the one that when I think back on it, I just think, oh, that was before anything happened to us. That's before anything went wrong. That's any of that stuff. It's a very very kind of pure moment.
yeah. I get that.
Beyond that, I was and I am in a band called Gothic Chicken down here.
Good name.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a reason for it. It was there was a back door of a club in Weymouth, and it had this on the door handle. It had this. It looked like a Teutonic rendering of a chicken. I think it was probably some heraldic bird, but our drummer said, "You Gothic Chicken," and so I thought, oh, great name for a band. But we were playing like psychedelic covers, very obscure psychedelic covers.
Yep.
But what a band! It was the only band I've ever been in where I properly achieved transcendence. That weird thing of where you play and you think, I could take my hands off the guitar now, and this music would still be just coming
Yeah.
through me, And we'd have that night after night, and it was just kind of, because we did a lot of improvisation, we just fall into an improvisation, and
Yeah.
everybody was so plugged in to each other. Not in a way where everybody was listening intently, but it was
Yeah.
just natural.
Yeah.
So for me, kind of any one of them were special or elevated or whatever that thing is about music,
Sure.
where
Totally. Yeah.
where it takes you somewhere else. It'd be
Yeah.
that.
No, taking that. It's your memories, Marco. So they're all great. They're great examples. So it's lovely. They're all quite different, which is
Okay.
magic. So let's put your hat on then. So are you willing to tell us about your least favorite gig as a performer, or one that's
Yeah,
like, yeah, go on
yeah,
then.
I will, and it was circumstantial more than anything else. This was it was KMO. We'd been touring America for like 6 weeks, supporting the alarm. That was difficult because it was difficult for me because Louis, my eldest son, was not yet 1 year old. It was kind of and Julie was pregnant with
Sure.
Tom. It was like, God,
Yeah.
this isn't going to be away. So it was circumstantially that was really, really tough. But we were getting towards the end of it. We were getting near Christmas and all sorts of stuff. And we were playing New York, and I thought, I'll go down to the big famous toy store, and
Hmm.
I'll get a toy for Louis. I'll get a little something for the baby to be and all that stuff. And I was feeling dead Christmassy. I think it was even snowing a bit. It was dead nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got back to the hotel, and there was a message saying not to worry, but your wife is into labour. And I was like, oh my God. So I just, I'd been 6 weeks of frazzled mental state. I just lost it. I lost my mind, And I think Kevin actually had to like push me into the shower and just like say, calm down, it's fine. She's been taken care of. And we were playing the Ritz that night, and
Hmm.
the Ritz is
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
used to be
Yeah.
Studio 54.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I was so wound up with, kind of,
Mhm.
I was bereft basically, and I broke three strings on the first chord of the first song. It's like, so wound up. So that was kind of, and it's one of these. I think Neil Young went on stage with the Alarm after that because they used to do "Rockin' the Free World."
That's right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we had Neil Young was backstage, but I was like, oh, I couldn't think
Oh.
of anything else.
Oh.
Mostly it was it was all fine, but that was God, that was difficult. That was so
Yeah.
difficult. So that one circumstantially was just God. I'd
Yeah.
rather be. I
I'm
really
not.
don't want to be here.
I'm not surprised. Have you got any from memory that you literally crashed and burned up? That
Ah.
two men and a dog stuff.
uh, well, loads of them. I mean, loads of things where we played it. But yeah, one gig I was actually playing drums in a blues band, and we were playing in a skittle alley, and we were going, oh, give people time to get in. So we went into the pub part, and we came in, and like, nobody was there, but there was a cat was asleep in my bass drum. Thinking,
uh,
oh,
that's good for muffling the
so
sound.
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The cat, I didn't, I didn't have the heart so I picked it up and took it out. So we played with the cat. That was fine.
Yeah.
Um, I've had a gig with my first band, Apartment Six. We were. I don't know if you remember the Ferry Cafe in Gurk.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing place. We kind of that was me and George Miller.
Hmm.
We got in there one day thinking, oh, I'd love to play a gig in here.
Hmm.
And it was Dermot and Ian who ran the place, and we went up and I think we had our school uniforms on. We were like, cool, can we play a gig in here? And they went, yes, yes. Like anybody else would have said, no,
Yeah.
obviously not, you fools. And it became like a venue for underage bands.
Yep.
But I was playing there with Apartment Six one night, and we were playing instrumentals. We loved this band called Chow Parrot, who I'll mention later on. And we thought, oh, they play mostly instrumentals. We can do that. We couldn't afford a PA. We thought, great, let's do that. So I used to shout the song titles to people.
Yep.
And we were playing down there one night, and this bloke was going, sing, sing. I kept yelling that. And we were just playing away. And the next thing, something hit me in the head. I was like, oh, God. And I looked down in the darkness on the stage. I thought, it's one of Peter's drumsticks. So I picked it up at the end of the song, and it was a pool cue. And this bloke had lobbed this pool cue at me and hit me very accurately in the head. And I had the presence of mind. I'm still really proud of this. I was like 17-year-old to hold it up and say cue for a song.
Here we
That's,
go.
that's pretty good, isn't it? Under the
That's very good.
circumstances,
Yeah. I
a
like that.
concussed 17-year-old.
Sing.
That was pretty unpleasant,
Yeah, I'm not
to be on.
surprised. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
a wee bum.
he never toured with you.
No,
If it didn't come a groupie or anything, no.
no, thankfully not.
No.
Although the story goes that he did try to wind up a band playing there the following week, and the bassist knocked him out with his bass up.
He probably used the pool cue.
Yeah, a pool cue became available. So yeah.
Oh, very good. Like
Oh
that.
God. I know. So
Very,
yeah, but
very
loads. I
clever.
mean, too many to
Yeah.
mention. There was just
Yeah.
nobody in the audience. That's just
Oh,
perfect.
I can imagine. Of course it is. Yeah, of course it is. Okay, got kind of two or three big ones to finish then. So, what about your favourite live music venue?
The Apollo. I mean, that'll be no surprise to
Apollo.
you. It was just such an exciting place, and such a great building. An
Yeah,
amazing, just the
yeah,
kind of the smell of it as you went in, like everything was kind of, just really kind of almost literally intoxicating, because so many alcohol and dope granules in the air. But
yeah. I
it
can
was
imagine.
just, it was so impressive because obviously you had the boxes and stuff, and the stage was so high. I mean,
Hmm.
15 foot maybe, something like that.
Hmm.
Just incredible. It's still one of my bitter regrets is that I never got to play there because it was gone by the time came
Yeah,
over. We
yeah,
played the pavilion, but
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it
It
was
was
just
amazing.
that feeling of that anticipation. I know a lot of it's to do with I was a teenager, but
Yeah, I get that.
also,
Yeah,
I look back on it now and I kind of think, with this very, very old grey balding head, I still think, no, I was justified in feeling like that
yeah. That's right.
because
Yeah,
those were colossal nights and just the thrill of looking in the paper and seeing who's coming,
yeah.
just like, oh my God,
I think
brilliant.
it is an age thing. I mean, it is an age thing for sure. But I would concur entirely. My first gig was at the Apollo,
Oh, amazing.
and I also got to the last gig there. The Style Council played the
Did
last
you?
gig,
Oh, nice one.
which was, I suppose, was a nice way in its own way to sort of bookend it all. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It was something special, and we talk about the bars and stuff, and they're all amazing.
Oh,
But yeah, the Apollo was a one-off for sure.
it felt like a venue. It really felt it just had that kind of. It was just steeped in music. I think there was
Yeah,
something about it,
I, I
that.
I always felt when I was in it, but kind of weird thing to say that I felt as if I wasn't in Glasgow.
I know what you
When I was
mean.
at it, it was like getting into like a kind of, I don't know, like a TARDIS like type thing, and it was taking me somewhere else.
Like totally,
Whereas the other venues are all great, but you go to Barrowlands, you know where you are, right? And
absolutely.
I did also felt with Glasgow Apollo, it was kind of otherworldly a little bit. I don't
No,
know if
you're
it was
right. It was.
the ornate building and all that. I don't really know what it was, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it was kind of immersive. I think, yeah,
yeah,
you were suddenly in this realm. The minute you got out, you were in Glasgow. You were sitting there
yeah,
with Mr. Chips next door, and
absolutely,
fantastic,
totally, yeah, totally,
and
yeah,
him down the hill at the station. But no, yeah,
yeah.
it's
It's
not
very
just that there's hundreds of great memories attached to it, but also just purely as a venue. I just think it was an amazing place.
agreed, totally agreed. Okay, so a couple of toughies to finish. What about your favorite ever gig?
Uh, right, this sounds like I'm plugging a book that I've just written, which I kind of am, but inadvertently. I've just written a book about this band Chow Parrot, who I mentioned earlier on.
Chow Parrot, right?
They were my absolute heroes as a teenager. They were sort of incredible. Playing this incredibly confrontational music in wee local pubs and stuff. I mean, they're amazing. And my favourite, the benchmark,
So when would this have been
this
roughly
would have
for?
been 78 to 80.
And what kind of music?
It was. This is the funny thing. It's kind of this is the argument that I wrestle back and forth in the book. It was at the time of punk, post-punk, all this kind of stuff. They had long hair and beards, and they had a violinist and all this
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
They looked like hippies, and folk grew up. The point I would say hippies, but all the punk bands that I loved, and there was a lot of them, and who would go to see Chow Parrot. They were more ferocious sounding, more confrontational sounding, and just really just this berserk sound. They were big, big Beefheart fans. They were big
Yeah.
fans of Can. They were
Right.
the two big heroes. So you kind of got that,
Yeah.
but they were playing original music. They were kind of writing this uh, very intricate stuff, but very rough. Really, really granular sounding. That the kind of it's very hard to describe. But part of the thing is that I'm hoping to get this book published, and I'm hoping that we can also get an album released of old live tapes, old
Yeah.
lo-fi live tapes, with just like a cassette on a tabletop,
Yeah.
because that's kind of what they sounded like. It was just this maelstrom, and they played. They used to have a residency in the Regency in Greenock, and the Regency was just this view of malevolence. No
Yeah.
windows, flat roof, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I spent a year and a half going to see Chow Parrot underage because I had to go and see them. But most of my pals were underage as well. And we were in there, and I recorded this gig myself. I had my wee cassette player on one of the tables, and it was a Wednesday Wednesday evening in the Regency, a mile from my house, and they were just fire that night. And they played one of the songs was Maha Finger. It was called. It was Maharishi and Goldfinger,
Okay.
and it was just this again like a jazz thing. It had like a head and a tail, and the middle was like a big bass solo more or less. But it was just vicious. It was
Yeah.
incredible, and people were just losing their minds. People were standing on the tables and stuff, and it was kind of incredible.
Wow.
You get this kind of Beatlemania
Yeah.
reaction to pure avant-garde music.
Yeah.
So that to me was the benchmark. That was
Yeah.
I've been chasing that high ever since because I came out thinking I can't believe it's like a miracle to like see
Yeah.
music of that intensity.
Have you still got the tape?
I have, and I don't have the whole tape, but I've got that version of Mahafinger, and rough as well. Honestly, I mean the tape's really degraded, but it kind of all helps. I think. I mean the main part of it, even that was just so brutal sounding. The guitarist who was also the saxophonist played a 12 string, and the riff in that he's detuned the four top strings are basically the E and the B. One of the strings in each pair is detuned by a semitone, so it's just this horrible, horrible sound. That's the riff, and at the end of it, he's playing saxophone, but the sax is through a big muff fuzz pedal, so it's just
Yeah.
shrieking back and stuff. And it's just so confrontational, but they were so funny and so charming.
Yeah.
People just loved them, and you either loved them or you couldn't bear them. You couldn't quite like them, and that's one
And
of the things I really love about them is the idea that there was nobody said, "Oh, they're quite good."
yeah.
You couldn't you could not have that reaction. So
And if you've wrote the book about, or do you know them then? Some of the guys in the
I
band? You do.
we became pally with them because we went every time to see them, not just in Greenock and Gourock, but we'd go and see them in Paisley and in Glasgow if we could.
Where were they from?
They're from Johnson,
Johnson, all right.
yeah,
Wow.
of all places,
Yeah.
and they we ended up my band Department Six that I mentioned. We ended up supporting them two or three times because we got that pally with them, and it's a thing that's even at the time I was in my teens, I was kind of thinking I've got to write about them, somehow. And it took me until now,
Yeah.
until now to do it.
Well,
But it's for whatever it's worth, it's my best writing. I think actually, I'm sort of in discussions with the publisher at the moment. The discussion basically revolving around how on earth can we market this because it's the most niche book in the world, and I completely get that.
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if that'll go ahead. I'd love it to.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll
Yeah.
get it out. If I have to self-publish it, I will. But I'd rather not.
Yeah. And you can blog it or you can put it through some fanzines and stuff. I mean, there'll be a way to
Sure.
get the story out for sure, but you'd rather put
Aye.
it out as an entity, wouldn't you, if you
No,
could?
definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
It would just be nice to. I just like the idea of it being on a recognised publishing imprint, just because that gives it a
It
legitimacy.
deserves it. Yeah, I get that.
You know what I mean? So that's my project for the moment. So
Love
fingers.
that. Well, it's absolutely first time Chow Parrot have been referenced. I can't believe they're from Johnston. I've never heard of them. So
No, no, that's the thing. It's kind
yeah,
of, but I just think it's one of the great untold stories of that time.
good. Well, get out there, mate.
I'll do my
Absolutely
best.
get out there. Do your best. We'll be backing you on that one for sure.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and to finish, then we ask all our guests to recommend one live album that everyone should have a copy of.
Right. Oh God, I really struggled with this one because my 13-year-old in there somewhere said, "Oh, made in Japan, Deep Purple," but
Yeah,
Metallic Hero. Yeah,
yeah.
no. Actually, the one I've gone with is Jerry Lee Lewis live at the Star Club,
Ah,
Edinburgh,
okay. Yeah,
which is just
of
brutal,
course.
and it's so exciting. The story behind that is that it's the Nashville Teens backing him,
Yeah,
and I think it's Barry Jenkins drummed with the Nashville Teens at the time. Uh, he and Jerry Lee Lewis cordially detested each other on sight. So
yeah.
what you're listening to is them trying to drown the other person out. It's so exciting. They're just absolutely going at it.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Stunning. It's such an exciting album. It's
It's
brilliant.
amazing. I mean, I have a coffee, but I mean, I was relatively old, I think, when I came across it. And I just,
I,
cause I remember
I,
Jerry Lee Lewis, but to me, it was a, kind of has been type,
I totally. Look,
started
you
off,
rock by then,
yeah,
but
big big, pioneer of it all, and then obviously things went wrong and whatever. But I remember
Well, that's the
hearing
thing.
him.
He's playing in Hamburg and let's like German Teds or whatever. They never lost the passion. So
No,
he's playing to an audience who absolutely adored him. And it's my big brother had it. My big brother must have bought it at the time because I remember like growing up with it. So it's an
yeah,
album that over time more people said, "Oh, you got to hear this," because it's insane. I mean, it's just
it's a
and
great
he's
reference. It's a brilliant reference. I'm so
oh,
glad
I
you
mean,
like it.
and he is kind of famously, like, by all accounts, one of the most derelict human beings you could ever come across. But nevertheless, if you're seeking that kind of primal rock and roll thing, of you're just so crazed by it that you're slashing cinema seats and all this kind of thing,
Absolutely. No,
there it is.
my favourite about the whole album, I think, is when you've got the German audience going Jerry, Jerry.
Oh, it's great.
That's brilliant, right?
I've
That's
got
just
a,
amazing.
I've got a great story. Just to conclude, a pal of mine used to play in the kind of in the '90s, late '90s, like early 'noughties. He played in Shakin' Stevens' band, and we were playing in Germany. And there was a bunch of at a festival kind of thing. And there was a bunch of like German skinheads, and they were shouting "wanker, wanker!" And Shakin' Stevens, as a terrible credit, turned around to the band and said, "It's all right, lads. It's German for shaky." Wanking Stevens.
Ah, I love that.
So
Ah,
he went up several steps in my estimation.
I love that. Ah, that's fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll stick that one on the list. I know a lot of people love to hear that again, for sure. It's a brilliant album. Well, there we are. So how was that? Was that okay?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, Brian. I'm sorry to go off at so many tangents, but
Oh, it's why we do it, mate. It's fill your boots while we're all together. It's just fun, isn't it, to get it out there? So, and it's been brilliant at our side doing it. So, what have you got anything sort of coming up? I know you mentioned the book thing you're working on. What about music wise? Are you working on?
do you know that's a funny thing that the because I've been writing the book kind of over and above my day job and all this kind of stuff, it's left me with very, very little bandwidth. Really, since my albums came out, I've written one song.
Okay.
Because but my intention this year is to get back into that because I've now finished the book finally. So my intention is to get back into that. But no, I'm playing kind of locally, and that's
Yeah.
kind of fine. But the whenever the itch comes along, you have to scratch it. So it's kind
Good.
of it's starting to make itself felt. But
Good. I mean, it'd be remiss of me not to ask you possibility of any KMO stuff somewhere down the line, maybe some
I don't
gigs.
know.
You don't know?
Kevin and I have been talking about trying to do something at some point. We haven't kind of we haven't nailed anything down yet or anything. But I mean, never say never. I mean,
No, no,
there's
no.
you know, um,
Get that.
I'd be happy to, but it takes a lot of at my age. I find that it takes a lot to go back in and remember how I did things. Because part of the thing was I always thought I'm right. You have to don't play safe. You'll never learn anything if you don't push yourself. So a lot of the stuff that I did, I was pushing myself, and I now find myself thinking, "Oh, why did I do that? These bloody things are so hard." You know.
Oh, well, listen, let me tell you a couple of things just to finish then, because I'll tell you on camera because you'll get embarrassed, right? I've let this for the guys because I'm guessing some people watch this and guys will know Kevin McDermott Orchestra for sure, but there'll be a lot that don't, and yourself for that matter. So we have a mutual friend, Alec Galloway, and I know you know Alec very well. For anyone watching, he's also an outstanding guitar player.
Yeah,
As
yeah,
as an aside,
I know.
and
So talented.
I messaged Alec, who I happen to know, and said I've got Marco coming on. Any message or anything you'd like me to give him? Because I know you guys are still friends. And he sent me a lovely text, right, which I won't read it all out to you. But the bit he did say to me was, I also recall hearing Bedazzled for the first time, the Kevin McDermott Orchestra, brilliant album. The song Somebody to Believe in it has the best guitar solo I have ever heard.
Oh, God. Oh, bless him.
Full stop. That's it. So,
Oh,
I know you know that means a lot. So,
totally. God.
you can have that one. And
Oh, what a sweetheart.
and as an aside, I also mentioned messaged Kevin to say I'm doing a podcast with Marco. Do you have any message you'd like me to pass on from him? So he just replied with Sydney Divine. So there's two different two, two different name checks for you. So I'll leave you with those. Um, and you're on Facebook and stuff, aren't you? So
Totally. Yep.
so I'm sure if and when you get some stuff out there, particularly on the book, it'll be nice for guys to follow that story and see if we can get it out there for you,
Aye,
mate.
for sure. I'll keep everybody as posted as possible.
Magic. Okay, well that was live music and me, Marco Rossi. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
Over our garden wall, I hear the sirens call. You can